The Galactic Council's xenobiological assessment of humanity was thorough, or so they believed. Ambassador Zek Thul of the Vorthak Consortium reviewed the data streams flowing across his neural interface as the human delegation's transport approached the orbital station. Diurnal species, he noted to his aide. Primitive visual spectrum dependency. Note the artificial illumination requirements throughout their vessel. They're practically blind without their crude photon emissions. The aide, a young crystalline named Veltar, pulsed agreement through the station's harmonic field. The initial contact teams reported they become agitated when deprived of light. Classic prey species behavior. Zekthul's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among his kind. The Vorthak had evolved in the crushing depths of gas giant atmospheres, where light was a forgotten concept. To them, these humans were just another addition to the growing list of species that required special accommodation. Bigger cages, brighter lights, gentler handling. Their psychological profiles indicate severe distress when placed in darkness. Veltar continued, his crystalline form resonating with satisfaction. They huddle together, make primitive vocalizations, and exhibit increased stress hormones. Typical herd-prey responses. The assessment files painted a clear picture. Humanity was a young species that had barely mastered interstellar travel. Their technology was crude, their biology fragile, and their psychological makeup suggested they were natural victims rather than predators. The Council's xenobiologists had classified them as environmentally dependent with limited adaptive capacity. When the human transport docked, Zekthul made sure the reception chamber was flooded with full-spectrum illumination. The humans who emerged seemed appropriately grateful, their primitive optical organs darting nervously to the darker corners of the room before relaxing. Ambassador Chen, Zekthul greeted the lead human, his universal translator converting his subsonic communications into their crude audio language. Welcome to Station Nexus. I trust your journey was illuminating. The human, a small, bipedal creature with inadequate natural armor, smiled with what their species considered warmth. Thank you, Ambassador. We're honored to finally meet face to face. Behind that smile, Zekthul noted with clinical detachment, was the telltale tension of a species operating outside its natural environment. The humans kept their backs to the walls, maintained visual contact with all exits, and positioned themselves with clear sightlines to potential threats. Classic prey behavior, he thought. They were already calculating escape routes. If only they knew, Zekthul mused, what true faces looked like in the dark. 3 months after first contact, the mining colony on Kepler 442c went dark. The planet was a Vorthok operation, a twilight world where the red dwarf's dim light barely penetrated the perpetual storm systems. Perfect for a species that thrived in darkness. The 100-strong mining team had been extracting rare earth elements from the planet's crust when their communications suddenly ceased. Probably equipment failure, Zekthul dismissed when the report reached his desk. Send a rescue team. But the rescue team found something far worse than equipment failure. The mining base was intact, power flowing, life support functional. The miners, however, were gone. Not dead, gone. Cleanly, efficiently, as if they had simply vanished into the planet's endless night. Security footage revealed nothing. The sophisticated Vorthok sensors, designed to operate in absolute darkness, showed empty corridors and abandoned workstations. Whatever had taken the miners was either invisible to their technology or impossible, Zekthul muttered, reviewing the files. The only footprints found at the scene were Vorthok and a strange pattern the forensics team couldn't identify. Something bipedal, small, moving with predatory precision through areas where no Vorthok dared to venture without proper equipment. The pattern was dismissed as contamination from the rescue team. After all, what could possibly hunt in darkness so complete that even the Vorthok required assistance? The answer came when Ambassador Chen requested a private meeting. We'd like to help with the investigation, the human said, those inadequate eyes somehow finding Zekthul's form in the dimmed meeting room.
Our species has some difficult recoveries. Zechthul's mandibles clicked dismissively. The environment is far too dangerous for your kind, Ambassador. The surface of Kepler 442c experiences temperatures that would freeze your blood. In darkness so complete that your primitive visual systems would be utterly useless. Chen's smile was different this time, sharper. Ambassador, I think you may have misunderstood something fundamental about humanity. We don't fear the dark. Of course you do. Your vessel, your habitats, your very biology demonstrates. We learned to make light, Chen interrupted quietly, because we were tired of waiting for our prey to come to us.
The human task force that arrived at Kepler 442c was unlike anything the Galactic Council had seen before. No massive ships, no armies of support personnel, no complex atmospheric processors or environmental suits. Just 12 humans in matte black armor that seemed to drink in what little light the red dwarf provided. Zechthul observed from the orbital command station, his confidence wavering as he watched the human dropship disappear into the planet's roiling storm systems without hesitation. Surely they don't intend to operate in those conditions without proper environmental support. The atmospheric pressure alone should crush their fragile frames. Colonel Sarah Mitchell's voice crackled through the comm system, distorted by the electromagnetic interference, but somehow still carrying an unsettling calm that made Zechthul's neural spines contract. Command, this is Hunter Team Alpha. Atmospheric conditions nominal. Weather's providing excellent cover. Visibility is actually better than our training scenarios. Beginning systematic sweep of Mining Station 7. Better than expected? Zechthul's aide whispered through the harmonic field, his crystalline form pulsing with nervous energy. The surface instruments read absolute 0 on visible light penetration. The electromagnetic storms should be scrambling their primitive sensor arrays. What they didn't understand, what none of the Council's supposedly superior species understood, was that humans had spent hundreds of thousands of years perfecting the art of persistence hunting in conditions that would send their prey into paralytic terror. Night vision, thermal imaging, motion detection, electromagnetic spectrum analysis, sound triangulation. All sophisticated attempts to replicate and enhance what their ancestors had accomplished with nothing but evolved senses, preternatural patience, and the terrifying ability to think 3 steps ahead of their quarry. But more than technological superiority, they had learned to think like both predator and prey simultaneously. On the surface, Colonel Mitchell and her team moved through the abandoned mining facility like ghosts given substance. Their armor's integrated sensor suites painted a complete 3-dimensional picture of their environment in real time, but they relied on far more than advanced technology. They read the microscopic disturbances in accumulated dust patterns, analyzed the subtle temperature variations where warm bodies had recently passed, detected the lingering traces of atmospheric chemical changes that indicated species-specific fear scent markers and stress pheromones. These weren't just soldiers, they were hunters who had learned to read stories written in molecules.
Colonel Mitchell's team didn't retreat. They didn't panic. They did what humans had been doing for hundreds of thousands of years when faced with superior predators in hostile environments. They became the more dangerous threat. Contact. Park's voice was ice-cold professional as her rifle spat streams of coherent light into the writhing darkness. Multiple hostiles, extreme mobility, moving through structured environment. They know this terrain better than we do. The creatures, later designated as the Umbral Collective by xenobiological teams, had evolved in the deepest caves of worlds where starlight had never touched stone. They were everything the Galactic Council believed made for perfect predators, faster than conscious reaction time, equipped with natural stealth capabilities that bent light around their forms, and utterly at home in absolute darkness that would drive most species insane. What they hadn't evolved to handle was prey that adapted faster than they could strike. Mitchell rolled under a grasping appendage that could have crushed Vorthak torso plating, her armor's reactive camouflage shifting to match surrounding stone textures in milliseconds. Rodriguez, thermal bloom on my mark. Park, active sound mapping. Chen, anchor position. Nothing gets past you to upper levels. The humans moved like a precision instrument designed specifically for killing, each member instinctively covering angles that created interlocking fields of fire. But more than tactical superiority, they possessed something the Umbral Collective had never encountered: the ability to think strategically while fighting for survival. "They're hurting us," Chen observed, his heavy weapon system tracking movement patterns invisible to standard sensors. "Coordinated assault pattern, trying to drive us towards something specific." "Let them," Mitchell replied, her voice carrying the kind of supernatural calm that comes from having nightmares and teaching them to be afraid of you instead. "Spring their trap." They allowed themselves to be driven into a massive cavern where dozens of suspended Vorthak hung like grotesque specimens. The Umbral Collective flowed in from every conceivable opening simultaneously, a perfectly orchestrated assault that should have ended with 12 more additions to their collection. Instead, they learned why humans had never needed to evolve natural weapons. They had learned to manufacture superior ones and use them with tactical precision that transformed disadvantage into devastating advantage.
The rescue of the Vorthak miners made interstellar headlines, but the real story was classified at levels so high that most council members never learned the operational details. What they did learn was that humanity possessed capabilities their initial assessments had completely, catastrophically missed. Ambassador Zekthal found himself in the profoundly uncomfortable position of having to revise everything the consortium thought they knew about human limitations and vulnerabilities. "You deliberately misled us," he accused, during an emergency private meeting with Ambassador Chen, his subsonic voice carrying harmonics of deep unease and barely controlled fear. Chen's expression was patient, almost gentle, the kind of calm that apex predators displayed when explaining obvious facts to confused prey. "We answered every question you asked with complete honesty, Ambassador. You assumed our use of artificial lighting indicated dependency and weakness. You never asked why we developed that technology in the first place. Enlighten me." "Because our ancestors were persistence hunters, Ambassador. We didn't need to be faster or stronger than our prey. We needed to be more patient, more adaptable, and infinitely more determined. When night fell and our targets thought they were finally safe, that's precisely when we became most dangerous." Zekthal's mandibles clicked with what humans had learned to recognize as acute distress. The creatures on Kepler 442c were apex predators of their entire ecosystem. Our finest combat specialists couldn't even detect them reliably, let alone engage successfully. "They were apex predators of their ecosystem," Chen agreed with terrifying reasonableness. "But they'd never encountered a true invasive species before." "Humans didn't evolve in their environment, Ambassador. We evolved to systematically conquer any environment we encounter. There's a fundamental difference." The difference became devastatingly clear as classified details of the operation emerged through intelligence channels. The human team had not only rescued the miners, but had systematically mapped and documented the entire Umbral Collective network. They'd identified breeding cycles, territorial boundaries, communication methods, reproductive vulnerabilities, and most importantly, exploitable weaknesses. "You studied them," Zekthal realized with growing horror. "While fighting for your lives, you were conducting comprehensive xenobiological research." "We were doing what humans do best," Chen corrected with that patient, predatory smile. "We were learning how to hunt something that believed it was unhuntable." The investigation into the Umbral Collective's origins led humanity into the deepest classified archives of the Galactic Council, and what they discovered there made even seasoned intelligence operatives pause. 17 colony incidents in the past 50 years, Director Sarah Chen, Ambassador Chen's sister and head of Human Intelligence Services, briefed the Joint Task Force, all attributed to environmental hazards or equipment failures. all involving complete disappearance of colonists with minimal physical evidence. The holographic display revealed a pattern invisible until you knew how to look: systematic culling of council member species, targeting colonies on worlds with specific environmental conditions. Always dark worlds, always isolated, always just small enough that their loss could be explained away. Admiral Korvax of the Hegemony Defense Fleet, a crystalline spider-like species, projected skepticism through the room's harmonic field. "You're suggesting coordinated campaign against council interests? The logistics alone would require resources that only a council member could possess," Director Chen finished coldly. "Someone with access to classified colony locations, environmental data, and authority to suppress investigations." The revelation hit assembled representatives like a physical blow. The Galactic Council had been created to prevent exactly this predatory behavior among member species. The idea that one of their own was orchestrating systematic harvesting violated every principle their civilization claimed. But humans had spent their evolutionary history dealing with predators wearing familiar faces. Genetic analysis of captured specimens revealed the smoking gun: artificial modifications, selective breeding designed to counter specific council species' defensive capabilities. All except one. "They have no genetic modifications for hunting humans," Dr. Elizabeth Park reported. "Whoever's behind this never considered us a threat worth preparing for." That was their first mistake. Their second was assuming humans wouldn't notice patterns everyone else missed. Their third mistake was thinking they could stop the investigation. The attack on Research Station Omega came during rest cycles when most species would be vulnerable. 17 hull breaches appeared simultaneously across different sections. But the human security team was ready. "Contact all sections," Chief Security Officer Marcus Webb's voice carried practiced calm. "Unknown hostiles using advanced stealth technology. They think we can't see them." Station lights cut out in perfect synchronization. Emergency lighting returned 3 seconds later, just long enough for humans to switch to night vision and identify targets suddenly visible against superstructure.
The interrogation of surviving Wraith Syndicate operatives revealed a conspiracy reaching the highest levels of the Galactic Council. For centuries, a secret coalition of elder species had orchestrated systematic weakening of younger civilizations, ensuring no new species could challenge their dominance. Humanity had been scheduled for environmental correction within the decade. The procurement protocol, Director Chen explained to the emergency council session, her words carrying clinical precision through universal translators. A systematic program of introducing hostile xenofauna to worlds inhabited by species deemed potentially problematic by the Council's inner circle. The evidence was overwhelming. Genetic modification laboratories, breeding facilities for weaponized creatures, transport networks moving dangerous specimens across the galaxy without detection, all funded and coordinated by species that publicly advocated peace while privately preparing for war. Ambassador Zek Thul, his mandibles clicking with distress, spoke for the majority of council members kept ignorant of the conspiracy. "How long have you known?" "We suspected from the moment we recognized the pattern," Ambassador Chen replied with terrifying calm. "We confirmed it when our people were attacked for asking questions. We proved it when the Wraith Syndicate tried to eliminate evidence. And now?" Chen's expression carried the kind of serenity that came from nightmares learning to fear you. "Now we do what humans have always done when faced with predators hiding among us. We hunt them systematically." The trials that followed restructured the Galactic Council entirely. Species that had ruled from shadows for millennia found themselves exposed to scrutiny they'd never experienced. Humans possessed an uncomfortable talent for finding secrets others preferred buried. But the real change came in how the galaxy viewed humanity itself. "They assumed we feared the dark," Colonel Mitchell observed during the decommissioning ceremony for procurement protocol facilities, "because that's what prey does. They never considered we might have been the ones creating darkness in the first place.
The Umbral Collective, freed from artificial enhancement, proved fascinating in their natural state. Intelligent, complex, remarkably adaptable when not weaponized. Several colonies requested human advisors for peaceful contact protocols. As humanity took its place in the reformed Galactic Council, one thing became absolutely certain. Humans didn't fear the dark, because they had spent their evolutionary history teaching darkness to fear them. In the deepest corners of space, word spread through networks transcending species barriers. The humans were hunting. And unlike their prey, humans never stopped once they caught a scent.